Those pesky mushrooms really need.
Oh, yeah. Uh,
All right. Nick, how are we doing in terms of quorum?
We need one more.
Okay.
Well, we can get started, and why don't we wait until we have quorum to do approval of minutes, meeting minutes from last time. But I'll just go ahead and call the meeting of our Sustainable Foraging Task Force together. And then let's go ahead and start with, should we just do quick introductions and then we'll go into public input? Okay. Great. Let's go ahead and do quick introductions. I'll go ahead and start first, and then Nick, if I could have you call people, that would be great. So this is Senator Susan Pa. I represent Senate District 38, and I chair this task force.
Why don't we start with Greg Qualley? You're muted, Greg.
I'm Greg Qualley with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
And then next on my screen is Kelly.
Morning, Kelly Bruns, Minnesota DNR.
And Luke Skinner.
Morning, Luke Skinner, Three Rivers Park District.
And Neebe.
Good morning, Nibi Ogichida Ikwe, representing Minnesota Indian Affairs Council. Thank you.
And Ingrid Schneider.
Morning, Ingrid Schneider, University of Minnesota, Department of Forest Resources.
And Rebecca Montgomery.
Good morning, Rebecca Montgomery, University of Minnesota Forest Resources Department.
Senator Green.
Senator Steve Green.
Peter Martiniaco. You're muted, Peter.
Good morning, Peter Martiniaco, representing Minnesota Mycological Society.
And he just logged on Matt Wappler.
Good morning, Matt Wappler, Minnesota DNR Division of Forestry.
And Angie Gupta.
Yeah, thank you. Angela Gupta, University of Minnesota Extension.
And Senator Pa, we have a quorum now.
Oh, wonderful. Great. So why don't we just go ahead and quickly do the adoption of minutes from our last meeting, and then we'll just move on from there to public input. If I can get a motion to adopt our previous meeting minutes.
I make the motion, Luke Skinner.
Thank you, Luke. And a second from anyone?
I second it. Peter Martiniaco.
Thank you, Peter.
And I'll take the roll. Senator or Chair Pa.
Yes.
Vice Chair Scraba. Kelly Bruns. Representative Falconer. Dale Gentry. Senator Green.
Here.
Angela Gupta.
Present.
Bradley Harrington. Nibi Okichida Ikwe.
Here.
Greg Qualley.
Here.
Peter Martiniaco.
Here.
Rebecca Montgomery.
Here.
Kristen Poppleton. Ingrid Schneider.
Present.
David Schultz. Luke Skinner.
Yes, in here.
Matt Wappler.
Yes.
Gary Wyatt. I'll tally, but the motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So all of our members voted yes. I think we didn't hear one, but it's okay. We have the majority. So adoption of the previous meeting minutes is adopted. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and move into public input. I want to say yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, just a correction. the public input is still taking place toward the end of the meeting. It's just going to
Oh.
be before we cover the next steps that we, and close the meeting.
Oh, I see, I
So,
see.
yeah.
Okay, I apologize. I thought you meant that we wanted to do public input before we get started. Okay.
Not
Okay.
before we get started, but before the last minute. To
Okay,
make sure
wonderful.
that they don't feel rushed at the
Okay,
at the end.
wonderful. Thank you. And if I'll go ahead and make a correction on my mind just so I remember, because I'm sure I'll probably forget later. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that, Stephanie. All right, so we did the introduction, so I'd like to go ahead and just go over the duties of our task force. I know at every meeting we always go over this information, but I do think it's important just to ground us in this work, and also just to give this information out to those who may be participating with us for the first time on the task force, members of the public. The duties of our task force is to gather, review data and information, including traditional ecological knowledge on the impacts of foraging on species resilience, ecosystem health, and other aspects of Minnesota's diverse biomes. Also to review existing regulations governing foraging activities on state lands, and to develop recommendations for science-based, including traditional ecological knowledge, foraging guidelines for state lands that balance public access and foraging opportunities with conservation needs. The recommendations must be in a form of draft statutory or rule language. It must be consistent with indigenous and other cultural practices and traditions. Develop recommendations for increasing public understanding of sustainable foraging practices that include safety and ecological considerations, and to solicitate input when appropriate. Develop recommendations for reduced price foraging permits. As you can tell, 3 of those duties of the task force is all about recommendations. And the next slide. We do have a legislative report that is due by February 28th, 2026. The task force must submit a written report containing its findings and recommendations to the Commissioner of Natural Resources and to the chairs and ranking minority members of the Legislative Committee with primary jurisdiction over natural resource policy. Recommendations must be specific and actionable. The report must detail proposals for change or additions to statute or rule to effectuate the task force recommendations. And these are our operating agreements. I won't go through all of them, but I will just say that since today, we will be doing this online. We're not having in-person portion of this meeting so that we can use technology to try and do some recommendation building. So I would ask that most of us, when we can, if we can leave our cameras on if possible, and if we can say our name before speaking. I'm one that always forgets that, but I'm going to try really hard this time just because we're online as well. And I would say take space, but also make space. And we don't have to worry about side conversations on here today, but just show respect for each other. All right, next. We've had 6 meetings so far. This is our 7th, and we do have 2 more meetings left before our report is done, and we submit that in. So it looks like we're going towards the end of our work, which I'm excited for. We've come a long way since the starting of this in August, and I appreciate everyone's work. We've also had, I don't know, we have listening sessions on here. But I know we've also had 5 listening sessions, so that's a lot. 10 meetings and 5 listening sessions on this task force is what we'll be completing by the time we're done with this work. And today, most of our agenda or our time together is going to be spent using Mural to do the recommendations. But I do just want to say that we're going to go over the key takeaways from the listening sessions with everybody. I'm also going to give a quick report about my visit with MIAC as well. That's not on here, but I'll make sure to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and do the introduction to Miro for those who have not used that technology before, and then we'll go into using Mural to do our work of creating recommendations. The bulk of our agenda today, I hope we can spend in discussion of recommendations. And then we'll do public input before we do next steps and adjournment. We've already done introductions, so we'll go ahead and skip that part. And let's do key takeaways from the listening sessions. Stephanie, do you want to take this one on?
Actually, I'm going to hand over to Jennifer for this one.
Okay. Oh, wonderful.
I
Thank
can do
you.
it.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, happy to. So we held 5 listening sessions. All of them were online. We had about 35 folks from the public participate in those. We had a handful of people who participated in multiple sessions. So that was fun to see folks kind of continuing to engage in the conversation. And I know several of you were able to participate in the listening sessions as well. So these themes are just summarizing the last 2 listening sessions. Some of the things that jumped out during those 2 sessions. I think at the last meeting we talked about the first 3. So in these last 2 that were held on December 3rd and December 11th, we heard again that folks are interested in prioritizing education over enforcement. So really providing guidance on ethical and sustainable foraging, and people are really wanting that better understanding of what, how, and when it is allowed. There was, I think, the conversation around permitting was interesting because there were folks who supported permitting and folks who really felt strongly that no permits should be required. But I think at the end of the day, the theme was, if there is permitting, having the lowest possible barriers to obtain a permit would be the preference. That would include streamlining the process and, the idea of balancing access to foraging if you need a permit with this idea of being able to collect data around foraging habits and regions and such. I think people understood that there would be benefit in additional data that could help inform policymakers in the future by using permits to gather some information. There was also, I think, buy-in around the idea of permits, maybe permits only for specific activities that might include large groups or whole plant harvest. So no a threshold for a permit required with certain conditions. There was a lot of really great conversation around grounding in Indigenous rights and traditional ecological knowledge. There's strong support for that. I think that came up in all of the listening sessions, and especially I think in the December 3rd and December 11th listening sessions, recognizing that foraging is a way of life and a need to recognize the treaty rights of Indigenous communities and make sure that everyone understands that kind of going into the foraging space. There was a lot of discussion about regenerative foraging and suggestions that could be an approach to consider. So this idea of proactive interactions with public spaces and being cautious not to damage the land, but also maybe planting or somehow increasing the amount of forageable materials. So that was a theme that came up, and there was a lot of interest in what that could look like. So leaving the land and the plants healthier than they were, and ensuring resources for future generations. And then finally, again, I think this came up in earlier sessions as well, but was reinforced and reiterated in these last 2 around the idea that expanding foraging access builds a broader base of people that are interested in conserving and maintaining the public spaces. And also that equity and access are concerns for people that don't have access to private land or maybe haven't felt welcomed in those public spaces. So that also came up as a theme in these last 2 sessions. And Senator Pa I think you were in both of those as well, so I don't know if you wanted to reinforce or reiterate anything, or if folks who were in those sessions wanted to add their observations. If you want to do that in the chat, that might be a good way to communicate additional insights as well. Senator Pa, you're on mute. Sorry.
Thank you. I lowered that so that you guys wouldn't hear me rumbling through paper. I thank you, Jennifer, for that. I want to encourage everyone to just put something in the chat, especially those who were at our listening sessions multiple times, but also feel free that if you want to just say something here quickly, just raise your hand and you can also contribute here about things that you have heard on the listening session that maybe rose up for you or was a theme for you. I know one of the big things that I heard is the theme around education that was pointed out here too, but really was education. And then the other was more access. And those were the two that really popped up. But we had a lot of people join us and that was really great. I know many people weren't able to join our listening sessions, even though we had five opportunities to do so, but we still ask that they participate by joining our meetings here or by sending input over to Nick. Okay. Peter?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I attended all the sessions and these themes ran through all of them. You know, in one way or another, something that I found really or I was excited about is the indigenous communities and members who participated in these sessions really were inviting the citizens of Minnesota to follow their food ways in looking at foraging from that perspective. And I found that really moving and really enjoyed receiving that feedback from them. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And I want to thank everyone too, before we move on from the listening session. I want to thank each and every one of you for helping us to advertise the listening sessions and sending it to your network of people to drive them to it. Because I know many of the participants here, they learned about the listening session through all of you. So thank you for that. All right. Is there anything else regarding the listening session that people wanted to make a comment about or share some thoughts before we move on?
No, but this is David Schultz. I just have sort of I guess a question of personal privilege here, is that on my version of it, it says chat is disabled.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Thank you for letting us know. You're right.
I know we have some tech support staff on here, so we can ask them to make sure chat is enabled for everyone.
Okay, now it's working.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Mine was disabled too. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right. So moving on to the next part of our agenda here. Let's see what we have.
Senator Pa, I think maybe had unmuted.
Maybe? Go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to add in one quick thing that I thought was wonderful was speaking of how foraging can actually be a form of recreation. You know, a lot of people, when they go out there, they're not professionals and they don't know everything about all the plants. So sometimes when we go out there, they're just trying to connect with and learn more about the plants. So being able to feel the ability to be out there as a recreation, I think would help us to be appreciative of foraging in that way and allowing the space for that. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is I just love how, you know, some people have differences of opinions, but we have all come together to work together in a very good way. Like I have felt good energy from all people that have been involved. So I'm so grateful and thankful that we're coming together for the people the land, the water, and the next 7 generations. So I'm full of gratitude. Miigwech padamian. Thank you.
Thank you, Nibi. So I'm just going to do a quick update with everybody about my meeting with MIAC. As part of kind of our way to make sure that we connect with our tribal nations, to get their input when it comes to our foraging task force work. I was able to join their meeting on December 4th. And was able to get some really good feedback. I'm so grateful to Shannon and to MIAC for their willingness to have me join their meeting. They had like a very packed agenda, but they gave us more time than they originally did, which was like 30 minutes. We ended up taking like 45 minutes because everybody was so engaged and just had a lot to share. But what we learned from there was that our tribal nations are very interested in what we're doing here and the work that we're doing, and they feel like this will impact their tribal members. And so it is really important that we continue the work that we're doing with them and that we continuously hear from them and engage them in this work. I want to say thank you to Nibi and to Bradley for going with me. It was like a 2-hour drive, but they both made that drive. And then my legislative assistant, Pania, went with me too. So thank you to all 3 of you, because it was like 4 hours of just driving for this meeting, but it was a very important meeting. And Nibi and Bradley both contributed greatly to the conversation and to the engagement of our tribal nations and their members. So I was really thankful for their facilitation and their advocacy too. What they shared with us is nothing that you have already heard. I think that a lot of what they shared with us are things that we have heard from members of the public and also members of this task force, and especially from Nibi and from Bradley. They shared about their concern for tribal members losing their access to natural resources and to harvesting on our land, state lands. And they would like clarity from the DNR on rules and regulations. The other concern that they brought up was the loss of knowledge for medicines that they're traditionally they have always used, and that lack of knowledge comes from lack of access, so that they're not teaching their children, the next generation. And some of the medicines that they need are not particularly on their tribal lands or the ceded lands that they have been given the ability to forage or harvest in. They have suggested that we must do sustainable foraging education and an emphasis on I'm sorry, I have a hard time reading my own notes. An emphasis on each tribe and their unique teachings, because that is something that is important to them, and they want an ability to still be able to pass on that information or that education or knowledge to the next generation. They also believe that foraging or harvesting is deeply tied to their spirituality and cultural identity, so that's important. Let's see here. They also mentioned about a concern for enforcement and compliance as well. That if we have, similar to what we've heard, that if we have a lot of restrictions, what is the enforcement? And then also, how do we think about compliance in that frame? They're also worried that members of their tribal nations are, when they're foraging on state lands, will get stopped. And most of the people that do work on these lands may not understand or know that their rights, tribal members' rights, when it comes to foraging, especially on ceded land or lands that have been expanded without needing permits for it. And then it says on here, emphasizing that this conversation around foraging or harvesting is more than just harvesting, that it really is a way of life for their tribal members in tribal nation, and for us to think about how our lands and harvesting also how it also intertwines with water quality and the wild rice and other resources that are directly connected. One member brought up an incident that happened to him, or his experience of being frustrated with the DNR because the DNR was removing choke cherries. And he witnessed, or chokeberries, and he witnessed it being cleared out. And so when he asked about if he could harvest them, he ran into barriers and couldn't understand why, if they were removing these plants, why that opportunity is not given to them to be able to harvest them, and had to ask for permission to be able to harvest it. And he's wondering if there's a way that we can allow people to harvest, especially plants and fruits that maybe that we're already looking to remove, so that the public can also have access to some of those things. Much of what they also talked about was making sure that that as we're doing this process, that we think about their tribal members and their historical traditional access to lands. But over the last couple of hundreds of years, they haven't had that same access. And I think the overall sense that I got from the meeting was that much of what NIMBY had always talked about, which is it truly is a way of life for them. And when we start restricting, what we're doing is we're restricting them from being able to practice their way of life, and for us to remember that. So those were the notes I took off from the meetings. We did end with the understanding that we would be doing follow-up with each other. I have a couple of follow-ups with two tribal nations that actually said they would like to connect with me outside the meeting further. And then I've opened up that invitation to all the tribal nations and members to also do that. And I will make it a priority to also connect with them as we continue our work. But if any of you have any suggestions, or if there's anything you'd like to learn that you think would be important to ask them the next time I talk to them, please connect with me directly. I'd like to open up this just a few minutes here for maybe you and Bradley to maybe share a thought from our meeting with NIAC.
Sure. Thank you so much. I also just wanted to say kind words about Senator Pa, because people had spoke out to me saying that you were very respectful and they appreciated your good work. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to the task force as well for all the good work that is being done. I also wanted to point out that there was a lot of talk about the use of pesticides and how that could affect our foraging. They're worried about people getting poisoned if we're using pesticides on the plants that we're going to be allowing people to go and eat and learn about and play in and, be a part of. So I think that's something that we still need to talk about. And then the other thing that I thought was pretty interesting that was brought up was the foraging and the way of life as part of freedom of religion, because a lot of the tribal people, tribal members, tribal nations consider connecting with plants and medicines and the water as a form of spirituality. It's more than just getting food, it's an actual connection to their spirit and their well-being as a full cycle. So just wanted to make sure we take note of that too. Overall, I'm just very grateful and thankful as we continue to move forward. Miigwech Padamyan, thank you.
Thank you, Nibi. Bradley, did you have something?
Yeah, you covered it quite well. Just something that I keep in mind, especially with my work at the DNR, that when it comes to specific activities, uh, they may not fit in the tribe structure exactly how it may fit into the state structure. So, like when we talk about foraging, it bounces over to DNR, but if foraging at a tribe may be in a different department or division or agriculture, cultural resources, even education in some instances. So, as we're moving ahead here and keeping that in mind as we engage with travel nations, that it may not necessarily be a natural resource, environmental resource management director or staff that we're engaging with.
Yeah. Thank you, Bradley, for that. All right. So I'd like to go ahead and move us over to our next work, which is a transition to our discussion on creating recommendations, and we're going to be using Mural for that. Um, I'm hoping that by the close of this day's meeting, that we have a pulse check on the level of consensus for each of the recommendations drafted so far, and that we get input from everybody on those recommendations and anything that's not on there. So we'd like to go ahead and try and get some of this work moving. Today, I'm going to ask that MAD consultants, they're going to lead us in this work through this technology. And I want to thank everyone for your willingness to transition this to an all virtual meeting so that we can use this technology, because we felt that this was going to be able to draw out all of our recommendations and thoughts and input in a way that can move our work forward. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn this meeting over to Stephanie and our MAD consultants to lead us in this good work that we're going to be starting up next.
Thank you, Senator Pa, and I'd like to add my thanks to everyone's willingness to try this out. We use this technology a lot with task forces and working groups, and there's a very short learning curve. We're going to spend about 10 minutes getting you comfortable, and then we should be good. Oh, Jennifer, I'm seeing that so the link did not paste correctly. Anyway, we'll have the link for you in a moment. I just want to share for this image that we're looking at here. When you click on the link, you're going to see this box with the first red arrow pointing to it, and it says create an account, log in, or enter as visitor. You're going to choose enter as visitor, and then you can add your name in the box, or if you prefer to keep the default label, which will be something like, curious koala, or in this case, visiting fish. So that is what it's going to look like when you log in. And once we are all in there, I will walk you through. I will walk you through how to actually use the technology. So we can stop sharing these slides now and come over to Mural. Nick, if you want to go ahead and share screen on the Mural so that folks on live stream know what we're doing, can see what we're doing. And I am going to summon everyone to our Introduction to Mural segment on the page. Quick note, if you go down to the bottom and just kind of hover over the icon that represents you, you can turn off show cursors, and you can do that if cursors come back on. Most people find that very distracting while they're trying to do the work, although it can be fun for folks on live stream to watch. But I want to start with number one, zooming in and out. So you can scroll forward on your mouse roller, or if you see the little plus and minus at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, that'll zoom you as well. And I just want to suggest that you all try zooming in on the little yellow circle until you can read what it says. And then for moving around the screen, there are two cursor settings. You'll see your cursor is an arrow, or if you go down again to the lower right-hand corner and click on the little hand, you'll go into hand mode. If you are in hand mode, that means you can move around the workspace without clicking on anything or changing anything. So arrow lets you edit and move things around and type things into sticky notes, and we'll practice that in just a couple of minutes. And then hand lets you just move around without accidentally moving objects. Then adding a sticky note, which we will actually do in just a moment. You're just going to double click where you want the note to appear. And then you can resize it by grabbing the corner. You can change the color if you want. And you can write something on your note. So I'm going to just double click here, and you see a yellow sticky appeared. I'll move it up so it's visible. And I can type whatever I'd like.
Stephanie, can you remind the group again how to hide cursors? And maybe
Yes.
Nick can do this on screen too.
Yeah. Yeah, so Nick, if you go and hover over the icon at the bottom of the screen that represents you, then you can turn off show cursors, and you can also turn off broadcast my cursor.
Stephanie, I have not found my cursor yet. This is Greg.
Okay, so let's see. You are.
Does it
So if you
show
just-
your own cursor?
So if you move your mouse around the screen, are you not seeing an arrow or a hand?
I am not on a mouse.
You're on the scroll bar, like on a laptop, you mean?
Yeah, I'm actually on
Okay.
a iPad.
Okay. I am not actually sure how that's going to work on an iPad.
Yeah. Okay.
I know this is Peter. When I have the cursors on, I don't see any cursor for myself other than my own arrow. Would that be normal? I'm
Yes.
assuming. Okay.
Yes. And I'm actually just gonna hop onto my phone here really quick and see what it looks like if I'm trying to move around. I can. Steph, would you be comfortable taking over the showing people how to vote in the practice space? And then I will, I have an iPad. I'm going to grab it and see if I can guide Greg on how to be able to engage with the mural.
I'm
Absolutely.
going to try to get on the computer here too. I'm just having trouble hooking up to Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, I just asked you all now to follow me, and we're going to get into this practice space. So, Nick, if you say yes to following me, I'm going to do that one more time. It's a summon feature. We're going to practice. Our first step is going to be practicing using these little voting stickers. So you're going to notice you should find your initials in one of these colored dots. And what we're going to ask you to do is to find your little dot and bring your dot to what represents sort of your answer to this question. Which of these drinks do you like best in the winter? And you can, just like RM is doing right now, or, like you can, actually what I'll do is because I know Roger is not with us today. I always have coffee. So here I am. I'm moving mine over. Coffee is my favorite beverage of choice, always, sometimes before water, which is not always great. But you go ahead and just practice, if you would. You have to be using the arrow function and not using the hand function. Yeah, go ahead and just respond to what works best for you. And it looks like the dots, if you pull them right over the coffee, they might get hidden in the background. And so if you just want to kind of put it off to the side or around your drink of choice.
Stephanie, hi Kelly.
Yeah.
If it gets hidden, how do I get it back? I'm
Ooh.
hiding under
Are
tea.
you are you hiding under tea? Here, let's see if I can find it.
Both hiding under tea.
Oh, look
There
at
we
how many
are.
There,
people
look at
are
all the
hiding
people
under
under there.
tea. Love that.
Where did I go?
So let me see. I'm going to bring this to the back. Um, send to back. Oops, I don't want to do that. Now I just lost T.
Stephanie, just to confirm though, like if we have an exercise where we're using this, we should put the dot like next to it and not go behind it, because then that could create an
Yeah,
issue.
it
Okay.
looks like that's how it was created. Yes.
And that is on me, and I'm sorry. I forgot to
Oh,
make sure
it's
that
all right.
everything was layered correctly.
It's all
But
right.
for everything else, your stickers should be on the top layer. There should not be any more problems with that. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I feel like we got some good testing there.
Yep.
Now let's move. I'm going to ask to be summoned
Before you go
again.
on, this is Steve Green.
Yep.
I can't, the bottom of my screen is cut off, and so I can't move. I'm assuming I'm not clicking on my own box because I can't move the little icon.
You can't move your little dot?
No.
No. Okay. I think I'm just looking, some things need to be kind of locked down here. So I'm going to just move this. There's always a little bit of, as people are working over each other, that can be a little bit challenging. One thing, Steve, can I just make sure when you're in the bottom right-hand corner, and if you're in the move mode, if your image is a hand, that just allows you to kind of scroll about the page. You have to be in the this sort of enabling function where you have the arrow, and that's what allows you typically to go and take your dot and move it wherever you might like. Do you
Right.
want to
And
try that?
I've got the arrow, but I can't move the dot. And I know you said that I have to click on my box at the bottom, but I don't have a bottom. I can see the top of the boxes, but there looks like there's maybe six of them that I can see just barely the top. But so my screen is obviously not full, and I can't move up and down the screen. The screen won't move for me, so I can see the bottom of it. So I'm assuming that's what's wrong. But why don't you go ahead? I can, if I don't vote, it's not a big deal. I have some issues with it anyway. That'll, but
Here's what
just
I'll
keep
say
going. I
is,
don't want.
yeah,
I
no,
don't.
it's okay.
I only have to like 12:30, and then I got to go. So you just keep with your meeting so we don't get too late.
Okay, sounds good,
And I
Senator
see
Green.
Rebecca and then Nibi. Are you
Yeah.
also having difficulty?
Can I say before we'll go Nebi and then Rebecca, one thing I just want to say is if this tool is something that is like feeling like, oh, I just can't work with this today, using the chat function is absolutely acceptable and we can transfer your comments into the mural. And so I know that sometimes like you just don't have like the technology's not working for whatever reason, know that chat is an absolute way that you can share your information with us as well. Go ahead, Nibi, and then Rebecca.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to make note that I'm on my phone today because my daughter's using my computer for a homeschool project. And also, if you could put the link back into the chat, because I don't even see a link where I can join. And then just a step further is after the meeting, I could go on to my computer to be able to vote in that way too.
Excellent. Go ahead, Rebecca. The link is now in the chat again.
I was just going to suggest to Senator Green to maybe try and make the window that he's working in full screen, and that might solve the issue of it being off of the main screen. So there should be an option in your web browser to make it full screen, and then you don't have things spilling off of the screen that you see. Just a tech suggestion for Senator Green.
I will give it a
And
try, but as long as I'm on now, I'll tell you also, I've already been kind of ousted here once, and I know it's not you, it could be on my end, but if I vanish, it's not because I'm leaving you. It's because I'm having a little some difficulties with my internet here, apparently.
okay. And Greg, I just joined Mural on my iPad, and I did find that if I like select one of the stickers, I am able to drag it and move it. But you're right, you don't really see on the iPad, you don't see your arrow or your hand. You're just gonna just kind of use your finger to drag around or click on your sticker and move it. Let's move into the main part of the mural, and I can pick this up again. Steph, thanks for kind of filling in, bringing us back into our work, the mindset of our work. Let me summon everyone. Just reminding ourselves of FIST to 5 as a consensus tool. So for each of the recommendations, we'd like you to move your sticker, which will have your initials in it, to one of the 6 categories, from I do not support this recommendation through I love it. And especially taking note of the middle ones. I see major issues we need to resolve now. I see minor issues we need to resolve now. I see minor issues we can resolve later. If your sticker is in the left hand 3 boxes, then we're going to ask you to also make some notes on what if anything might move you further along to the right on agreement. And just a reminder that we're not making any decisions today. We might call this we might say, where did you put your vote? But this is not actual voting. This is just a pulse check on how you're feeling and to get input on how the recommendations might be adapted so that we can gain consensus on them. There may be recommendations that you just can't get behind, and that's all right. We just want to know where we are on each of these. So, and just, jump in and speak up if you have questions. Oh, and Ingrid say, what determines now versus later? Now versus later means later, honestly, can be in the 2 meetings in January. So we will have a lot of time for discussing the specific content of resolutions. So I would choose I see minor issues we can resolve later if I like the concept of the recommendation, but there's some details or some wording that I think don't really reflect exactly what we're trying to say. But overall, as a recommendation, I support it. Things that I feel we need to resolve now would be, I can't say I support this unless we fix it. Peter, go ahead.
Yes. Is there an opportunity to, uh, make suggestions to change wording of some of these recommendations right now?
Yeah, and we're not gonna do the changes right now because we want to get through all the recommendations, but make those notes in the stickies. We are gonna, everything is gonna be captured here in the stickies or in the chat, and we are keeping track of absolutely everything. And we will, between now and the next meeting, we will do our best to incorporate all the changes and suggestions and come back in January to share those. And depending on what suggestions folks have, we might have two versions because we can't quite reconcile them, and then we work from there. So coming over to the real work, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see all of these. So as Senator Pa mentioned when she was talking about the duties, three of our duties, 3, 4, and 6 in the legislation are related to developing recommendations. So we've grouped these according to the duties. First one we're looking at is duty 3 recommendations, which is statutes and rules. And in the box here, we just have what the statute actually says. So in this first one, the recommendation is define non-commercial, personal, and/or community use. And then in the white box underneath, here, let's zoom in a little bit. I'll summon you all again. Here are the details of the recommendation, and this matches the document that you received by email. Rebecca.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can finish your description and then call on me. I don't need to interrupt.
Okay. So we've got the recommendation there, and then just below it, you each have a sticker with your initials on it. Drag your sticker to vote in the row. No straddling the line. You have to choose one of the 6 categories. And then if you vote in the first 3 columns, add a note to explain your concern and suggest revisions that might get you up to the live with status without losing the supportive votes of others. If you vote in the other columns, your comments are welcome, but optional. And just a quick note to put your voting stickers in the top row, and then the bottom row is for the sticky notes with comments, so that there will be space for everything. Rebecca.
I just want to clarify the difference between minor that can be resolved later and minor that resolve now. My understanding, and people are already doing what my question was, is that if we can resolve it later, we weren't supposed to put sticky notes on our wording changes. So if we have wording changes, do we automatically just vote for resolve now so that those wording changes can get recorded?
You can
Do
put
you
wording
understand what I'm
changes.
trying to say?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I have a minor issue that could be resolved later, but there's nowhere to write what that issue is in the way it's set up right now. So then I think maybe I'd put it in resolve now so that I could
right.
write the comment.
Yeah, no, you can absolutely put your notes in those gray boxes. We just grayed them out because you may not feel it's essential to put in a comment. But comments are welcome to any of these. Even I love it. You could say why you love it if you'd like to. Any questions about this? And is anyone still having trouble using the mural? And we are seeing what's in chat, and Jennifer is going to be transferring everything from the chat into the mural so that it is all together. And maybe to your point earlier, we will leave the mural available for at least the rest of the day, and we can go a little longer if needed. We're going to want to stop edits at some point so that we can actually compile everything and start pulling it together. But for folks who want to add comments after the meeting, we can leave this open for a bit after that. So what we'd like to ask you to do is just work independently for, well, let's start with 15 minutes and we'll extend that if you need more time, and just go through each of these. We've got, the first are the recommendations related to statutes and rules, and below that, recommendations related to public understanding. Then we've got the recommendations related to permitting. And finally, there are some recommendations that don't fit into those three categories, but which emerged from our conversations. Speak up or make a note in the chat if you have questions. And for now, we're gonna leave you to it. And please cast your votes and add your thoughts, comments, rewording, questions, whatever you would like to share. Multiple stickies if you want. The stickies will expand as you type in them, but you can also do multiple stickies if you'd like to.
And just for clarification, we're only working on one at a time?
You can proceed through them as you finish. So just yeah, go
Very
ahead
good.
through the mural and indicate your agreement or support for each of the recommendations and add your comments as you'd like to.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Is there
Stephanie-
any way that I can respond to somebody's sticky note?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just, note that you're responding to that one and type
How do
away.
I do that?
So create a sticky, and let's say you wanted to respond to sharing instead of barter. Then I would so you can double click and create a new sticky, which I've just done. And just write, so sharing instead of bartered. Here is my comment on this. And you don't have to retype the entire note if it's a long one, but just put it nearby. And
okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Stephanie, Gary Wyatt, I joined late. Sorry about that. Is there something I need to download to be on this page?
No, and Steph, could you put the link back into the chat? Zoom, if you join late, you don't get to see what was put in the chat earlier. So we're going to re-add the link to the chat.
Great, thank you.
And when you click on that link, you're going to see like a login box, but below the login, it's going to say join as visitor, and click join as visitor. And then you can either change your name or join under the default, visiting owl or whatever it decides to call you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Ingrid.
Yes.
Yes, there's several of us who are saying the same thing. Can we just like put a 2 on, or should we just copy their
Yeah.
sticky note?
No,
How do we?
yeah, absolutely. You can, there's over on the left, actually, there's, if you click on the little llama icon, so in the black bar on the left, there's a bunch of icons that even looks like a llama.
Yeah.
And if you click on that, you can find a plus or a thumbs up
Okay,
or
great.
whatever
Thank
you
you.
like.
Yeah.
I think, Stephanie, you can also do it if you just click on the box and then
Yep.
the
true.
the bar shows up and then there's like a smiley face with a plus. So you can add a
Okay,
reaction
yep.
over to.
Thank you.
There we go. Cool. Thank you.
And just a quick reminder to keep moving through the recommendations. You can come back and expand your comments as well, but we'd like to at least get your voting stickers in all of the recommendations. So if you haven't done the first 4 and moved into duty 4, maybe move in that direction. And for the person who's typing the note there, if you could just maybe move it so that your sticky isn't covering so much of the recommendation so that we can, yeah, other folks can move around. Thank you.
All right, and please excuse typos, by the way, too.
This is a judgment-free zone in regard to typos.
Very good. Thank you.
The big box on question 3 is blocked. I'm not able to access my comment or re-comment on it with that really large one being. See if I can grab it now. There we go. Okay, thank you.
My glasses today, so it's really hard to type in a small box. I need the big box, so apologies if I keep covering you up.
We're good.
Is there a way to tell which comment is yours after you've moved it up? Like, except for blowing it back up and looking at it?
Unless you put your initials in there, Kelly, no, you have to kind of scroll back in with your mouse to see which comment's yours.
But that's a good point, Kelly. You can zoom in to the screen rather than having to make your note bigger. You can just zoom
Okay.
in closer.
Yeah, I think I got ahead of myself on some of them, so I need to move some back and forth, and I just trying to figure out the easiest way to read them and pull them around.
You haven't already made your way to the recommendations in duty 6 or the additional recommendations. We hope you can do that in the next minute or two, so then we can open it up for discussion in the next few minutes.
That you would.
This is Stephanie Heim from MAD. At about 11:25 and 6 minutes, we're going to transition to discussion. You all are making phenomenal progress, but please continue to move your dots and add your comments. We are going to move from individual work to task force discussion in just another minute or two. And as Stephanie said, this mural will remain open, so you can continue to add your comments and reflections beyond our time together today. Okay, I am going to at this time ask Nick to stop sharing his screen so I can share mine. Thank you. First of all, well done, everyone. You did an excellent job commenting on each of these 13 draft recommendations. Thank you so much for taking your time to share your perspective individually. We're not gonna have time to have robust discussion about each of these 13 draft recommendations, and that's okay. Where we want to spend the most time in these remaining 30 minutes or so together is to talk about the recommendations that seem to lack consensus the most. And so what I'm going to do is I'll zoom in. First of all, just look at this very first recommendation, pretty strong consensus with lots of opportunities to improve the language. So the direction of this recommendation to define non-commercial, personal, and community use seem to hit the mark. There are two recommendations in particular within the recommendations that fall under this duty 3 that have probably the greatest lack of consensus. And it's this second recommendation here, which is on developing a new statute and rules that allow for harvesting and foraging, and then also this one here about modifying the administrative rule 6100. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in on the comments. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite folks who put their comments here and their sticky dots here to come offline if you would, if you feel like you want to illuminate and add additional nuance to your post-it note. So this again is for draft recommendation 2 to develop a new statute and rule. And there is probably the most lack of consensus for this category of duty 3 here. So I'm going to just zoom this up so people can take a look. There's questions here about adding state parks for exclusion. There's another one that does not support allowing the agency to pick what can and cannot be harvested without a permit, feeling that it defeats the point of the task force. Also wondering about striking wildflowers or vegetation of any kind until we have better research. So again, I welcome folks who put their comments in this lack of consensus. Just an opportunity to come off mute if you want to illuminate any of your concerns with words.
This is Matt Wappler with DNR.
Thanks.
So in general, I guess we have administrative rules that refer to collection of berries, mushrooms, nuts. So rather than create additional rules or statutes, I just see it more efficiency in clarifying existing rules than creating something new. And then in terms of the first bullet that allows DNR to create a protected species list that require a permit to harvest, DNR already has authority to create a protected species list under the Minnesota Threatened and Endangered Species Law. So that includes, not only animal, insect, terrestrial animal and insect, bird species, amphibians, fish, so on, but it does include plants as well. So, we can't allow for the collection of certain plant parts from plants that are on that list. So we already have the authority to limit what can be collected. So I guess I would say the one comment there, that would be my response to that. I mean, I don't know, Kelly, if you had anything to add or any thoughts there.
Sure. Kelly Bruns, DNR, of course, mine are the top big box and the bottom big box, Matt. So, I reflect a lot on the fact that the SNAs that DNR administers, we have 192,000 acres of those lands. State Parks has just a little bit more with 232,000 acres. And they're highly visited, highly pressured. Great thing. I mean, we want people to come out and have access and to be a part of these resources, regardless of whatever outdoor recreational activity they prefer to do on that set of lands in state parks. But again, as noted, because they do have good access and they are able to be visited and people have those opportunities, we have a lot of pressure on a small percentage of acreage across the system. So that's why I added that comment. And we also have a much higher percentage of rare, threatened and endangered plant species, as well as really significant cultural resources on those lands. And then the thing that probably the theme throughout all of these that I continue to feel that we all should be reflecting on is kind of that education first before significant change, education or research. We don't have research that we've been talking about throughout all of this to just kind of open up processes to things that we don't have any real good data that would allow us to say, this is not impactful. We could do regenerative work here. We could create different zones. So I'm a little bit hesitant to say, let's go and do all of these things when we all as a group understand that we need more time maybe to look at certain things to make those decisions. So I just wanted, and again, like one of the things was creating maybe more permits for specific plant species. State Parks has really never dealt with permitting. I mean, we have the current authority to allow for foraging of specific species now. So how would that even look? How would we implement it? And then if somebody's concerned with even like what a fiddlehead fern might look like, and they're out there foraging without the knowledge of, I mean, how they'd have to go through some robust training, and the threatened and endangered plant species list change all the time because of climate mitigation work that when and plant and insect and diseases. And so it would be it would be very challenging in my mind to continually be trying to update and or monitor and or implement a permit type system at a state park level around that. So just some food for thought for the group. Thank you.
Matt and Kelly, thank you for outlining some of the authority that DNR already has and some of your concerns. Does anyone have any clarifying questions, given what Matt and Kelly just shared? I also want to just bring us to the other recommendation falling under the duty 3 that seems to lack the most consensus is around the modification of the administrative rule 6100 on outdoor recreation. So I'm just going to zoom in to some of these comments. And again, if you fall in this category of lack of consensus and you want to add a nuance to what's written here, please do. Also, if you have specific changes you'd like to see made that would move you into kind of agreement and consensus, we welcome those after the meeting as well. You received a Word document, so you can use track changes, you can add comments. Angie Gupta, we know we got yours about the inclusion of some of the invasive or non-native species, so we've noted those as well. But again, these are comments related to recommendation 3 on changing the administrative rule for outdoor recreation.
Stephanie, I have one comment.
Please.
Luke Skinner. I think I was struggling a little bit with the way it was laid out and going back through, but reflecting on what was said, I think one of my biggest challenges is why are we creating statute and rule? And if we're going to make changes, going back to Matt's comments, I think that's where I was getting hung up and I was providing comments and I moved it over. I think it should be one or the other. If we already have rules, then and we want to make changes to accommodate whatever from a process perspective, not content related here. Creating statute just overflex. So you're going to have everything. That was some of my comments later on, that they have to match perfectly. Otherwise, they're not going to be in alignment. There's no reason to, in my opinion, to do one, or you should be picking one or the other to focus on for those changes and then focusing on the change. So that would be one of my big questions. Why are we doing two statute rule? Focus on one or the other, because the statute would supersede rule, I would assume, if it's voted on by the legislature or at least be in conflict with. So then comments from there can be more specific.
See a couple head nods with that there, Luke, and a thumbs up from Gary. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, I just, as a non-legislator, I just wanted to ask for some clarification about whether this administrative rules section is what Matt was referring to in the discussion of the last one, in terms of, is this the existing rule? Or are there more beyond this? I think this might be back in our document somewhere, but it's not on the front of my head. So clarification about that would be helpful to me.
If I could, this is Steve Green. I think if you're looking at this, if there's anything in here that's not underlined, It's probably part of the existing rule, and but that's only in the portions where they're suggesting the rule change. So, for instance, um, in number 3, modify administrative rules, what you're seeing there is the language that's in statute right now, except for whatever's underlined would be the new language, and and stuff with the line on it is the language we're taking out.
Thank
So
you,
that's what we're
Senator
changing in
Green.
this.
That's correct, Senator Green.
Yeah.
My question is more towards, is this the rule that Matt was referring to, that this exists already and could be modified and thus supersede having to create another thing? Or is it just one of many rules that would need to be changed if an overarching statute, for lack of, I don't know if I'm using the phrases correctly, would be created? Does that make sense? Like, is this the only thing, or are there multiple things like this that then would kind of supersede or might be where we work instead of number 2?
Well, if I could again, one of the reasons in my comments is that if we're going to make a law, and then the rules should only be in, although I think they're abused, they're only supposed to be in place to allow for what the DNR or any agency, I guess, needs to implement that rule. And when you leave the law broad like it is, then the agencies can come in and make that law whatever they want. So, for instance, if we say, you know, these things, certain things don't need a permit, but then in the same law, you're giving the DNR the authority to decide what those things are, then you're spinning your wheels, because that's where we're at right now. The whole idea of when this first started was to do a limitation on what rules can be made. And if we're going to do that, and if we're going to put those limits in, we should have them in here and put them in statute so that we know specifically what it is. Then people will know. And the agency can't come back later and change a rule or make a rule, and now no one knows what that is again.
I'd like to add to that. Senator Green's completely right on that. We need to look at the statute very closely and make sure that what this task force does includes what we want to have in the overriding statutes. Thanks, Senator.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Senator Green spoke to as well, that when we are writing these recommendations for statute changes, we do have to be very specific on certain things that we want to be specific on, because if we don't, then it does leave room for the department to be able to make rulemaking, which is essentially another way of making their own department laws or policies around things that we're not specifying in statute. So right now we do have it very broad, and hopefully through this process, we can maybe refine on some of those things. So if we were saying, it seems that we're putting limitations on what kind of rules that the department can make or put in place. And that is important if we want to actually limit certain, I would say, their ability to make rules. So if we are saying, like, for an example, specifications of plants, if we're saying the DNR can restrict certain plants, we should put some parameters about what the process of them being able to restrict those plants. So it can't just be whatever, for whatever reason they're restricting plants. It has to be that those plants are endangered or threatened, or there's specific concerns about those plants that that the DNR has that has led them to restrict it. So unless we say that, we're saying you can restrict any plant that you want. So it seems that we're getting into some of the rules, but it's not that we're getting into, it's that we're specifying statute the rules they should be following when they're making these rules. Hopefully that clarifies just a little bit more.
Thanks, Senator Pa. Nibi, go ahead, and then we'll move into recommendations related to permitting, because that also seems where there's a larger lack of consensus. Go ahead, Nibi.
Yeah, quickly, I just want to say I also agree with everything that Senator Green said and Senator Pa said. That was a lot of what I was going to speak on. And then just to remind us all that the key dates and foraging statutes for Minnesota recreation areas and forest lands date all the way back to 1977, 1986, and 2008. So just to remind us that, that was a long time ago when these rules were made. So it is a good idea that we are revisiting and rewriting, from my opinion and my perspective of everything that I've seen and also things that I've heard from community members. Thank you.
I'm just for time's sake, I am, and we do have someone who has signed up to give public testimony. So I am just going to acknowledge that there is fairly strong consensus related to duty 4, which is to increase public understanding. There are certainly areas that need additional work, as you can see. And I would just say that for time's sake, we're going to move into the duty 6 recommendations related to permitting, because this is where there seems to again be, when you look at the dots, the greatest lack of consensus. So I'm going to zoom in here on the draft recommendation 8 about revising an administrative rule to allow for foraging, harvesting and foraging for plants for non-commercial, personal, or community use without a permit. And I'll just sort of scan in here again and invite folks who put their comments and the lack of consensus to provide any additional nuance or context to their comment, and to also say what would get you into consensus. What changes would you like to see made?
I can speak to the fact that I didn't put a comment in, but the comments that are there, um, you know, we've gotten strong public input that at this juncture, that permitting is something that they see as a that they're opposed to and as a big barrier. And I would say that at this juncture, some arching permitting process is going to be, create fiscal issues, going to create a variety of issues that, uh, that are going to be a challenge for our statute to move forward. And I think that um, there might be opportunities for permitting for, very specific things, but as a recommendation for some kind of uh, overarching permitting process, I think I think from I think that's something that would be appropriately revisited later, um, if at all. But at this juncture, I just don't see a lot of support within the public, nor, as it's been pointed out by the DNR, that they're not prepared to administer something like that. And it seems um, clear that we don't have uh, any specific um, requirements for many things that would justify a need for a permit.
Thanks so much, Peter.
Yeah, this is Matt with DNR again. Just to add on to what Peter was saying, we currently don't have the capacity or infrastructure to issue, across the board permits, especially no cost or low cost permits. I mean, on forestry administered lands, when we do issue a permit for the collection of plants, it's in accordance with the other statute such as the Minnesota wildflower law. That's generally where we get our authority to issue a permit for the collection of certain plants. So we only issue permits when we absolutely have to under statute. Generally, we don't issue permits when we reach a commercial level of harvest of berries or nuts or mushrooms, because that generally doesn't occur. And in general, our current procedure and policy on issuing permits, I think, is adequate. So it just requiring more permitting would just further alienate potential users. We want to increase access, not limit it by saying, well, you have to have a permit regardless of what you're going to collect. It just, especially if someone, well, last year I didn't need a permit and now this next year I do need a permit. What changed? So less permitting is better.
Thanks, Matt. I see that David would like to comment. We may have time for one more comment after that, and then we do have someone who would like to give public testimony. So go ahead, David.
I'm just going to cut in really quickly. For the member of the public, they have the Zoom link. I'm guessing they're probably following along on live stream. I'd like to invite that individual to go ahead and join the Zoom now, and we will call on you as soon as the next person finishes speaking.
Thanks, Stephanie. Go ahead, David. Oh, and you're muted. David, you're on mute. Here, I think I can unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I think for what I called de minimis foraging, we shouldn't have a permit, because I have in back of my mind the idea, maybe something along the lines of what you were setting, Senator, that you're walking along a path, you see, excuse me, I'm sorry, you see some berries and you grab a couple, something like that. I don't want people to get permits for something like that whatsoever. The only type of permitting that I think we have, and I don't know how to make this distinction, if somebody's going beyond sort of like de minimis or something, but I could even be persuaded to drop that. But the political issue that I see here is, and I know we've talked about how hunting and fishing is different than foraging, but I suspect there are going to be people who are going to come back and say that if we're requiring a permit for hunting and fishing, why not foraging? So at some point, and I don't know what it is, beyond de minimis, maybe we want to consider a permit, but I'm not quite sure what that is, what the answer is yet on that. But for de minimis, no permit.
Thanks, David, for your comment. At this time, I'd like to transition and welcome our public guest to speak. I believe is that Kelsey has just joined us. Kelsey, if you would be willing to introduce yourself, name, location, and region, or your group, organization, or community that you represent, that would be great. And then we welcome your comments. Our ground rules are 2 minutes. Respect and appreciate diversity of thought, focus on the ideas, and remember our meeting is open to the public. So welcome, Kelsey.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate everyone on the task force. My name is Kelsey Myrie. I live in Duluth, Minnesota. And I just wanted to share, it was really interesting to hear what you all were talking about today, as well as reading through the minutes of previous meetings. I just wanted to reemphasize the importance putting at the forefront of this whole process that education and communication about treaty rights, I think is a really important aspect of this topic. I know from speaking to community members in the Fond du Lac community, there's been an observation of certain overharvesting of different products like chaga or birch saplings. But at the same time, I've also, there's also a lot of barriers to access. So I think that right now, through this whole process, I would really like to see a focus on lowering barriers to access and focusing on training or education and outreach about foraging. I think it would be really great if there was a feature of this process that could encourage in elementary or middle schools, public state middle schools or elementary schools, having a required portion of state education standards being addressing this topic. So like being able to not only just like instead of having potentially like a permitting system that may change or evolve over time, that may create barriers, but allow for a touch point with the public. If that is not possible for the DNR to implement, like what I've heard a few people say in this meeting, I think it would be interesting if we could do outreach to young people in school as part of a core curriculum, brief, this is a video or a day spent talking about this topic. I also, from my personal experience foraging, I think it's really important for the public to have access to updated maps with clear lines of treaty boundaries and tribal lands. With any kind of harvesting, ethical harvesting and foraging, understanding whose land you're on is really important. And so having access to that material would be really helpful. And I just also wanted to add a personal thought that I think the idea of having untouched wilderness or natural processes that are not impacted by people, like as the purpose of setting aside certain wilderness areas, I think that concept is rooted in settler colonialism, and I think it's important to recognize that people are a part of the ecosystem in which we live, and we can interact with the plants and animals and systems around us ethically and honorably. So I think that this is an incredible opportunity to build a shared culture for Minnesotans and educate Indigenous people, or excuse me, educate non-Indigenous people about cultural practices and honorable harvest, and as well as reduce barriers for tribal members and Indigenous people to be able to access their own lifeways and revitalize their own lifeways. So thank you very much.
Kelsey, thank you for joining us today. Senator Pa, I'm going to turn it back over to you to close us out with next steps, and I can share my screen with our final slide here.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for leading us in a really good discussion and activity on the recommendations. That was a lot to do in the time that we had, but everyone, thank you so much for all your participation. And we still have a lot of time to also review kind of what we discussed today and the recommendations and the language here from now until the next time that we meet. And so I want to encourage all of our task force members to write in and email those improvements or ideas to Nick and myself and Stephanie and Steph, our staff, and so that we can further refine and add that to the ideas and recommendations that everybody's putting in. So we will work as myself as a chair and staff will actually work on compiling a lot of what you guys put in together today and what you email in so that we can condense all that information into something that we can share back with all of you the next time that we do meet. So go ahead and just know that this is not your only time that you can give comment or thoughts or recommendations on these specific items. Know that there's still more time for us to do that. The next meeting that we have is going to be January 16th, January 6th, where we will be refining these recommendations. And like I said, myself and staff will pull together what we've gotten from you today and anything that you send us from now until then to try and put it in a way that we can digest that information the next time that we meet as well to refine those recommendations. Is there any last questions or thoughts that any member of the task force would like to say before we end the meeting for today? Peter.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to thank Kelsey for that input. I thought it was summed up a lot of things that we've heard from input previously. Also, I think if I understand correctly, is that I'm looking at all these recommendations and some seem like either restating the same things or are a little bit in conflict with each other. And I'm assuming that it comes from the fact that people have provided, whether it be through input or other stuff, have provided information. And I think we need to consolidate some of this so that, we don't have one thing saying, oh, you can't do this, and another thing saying, oh, yeah, we want to do that. And I think that's creating some confusion for some of the task force members. But I think this has been a great meeting. And I appreciate all the task forces, the staff work that went into preparing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And I do just want to remind that the public has time from now until December 31st to write in or email their comments or input to us so that we can consider those things as we develop our recommendations as well. Many of you have already done a great job soliciting and I would say networking within the people that you know to bring those comments forward if they have any so that we can include it in our recommendations or consider that in our recommendations. And Nibi.
Thank you so much for everything today. I just wanted to ask as a request if we could get one final flyer that shows that our public and our communities can continue to write in their comments. So basically it'd be like the same flyer, but just take the listening sessions off of there. That way I can continue to share and circulate that information with anyone that thinks that they missed their last chance because they couldn't make it to the listening sessions. But we want them all to know that they are still welcome to write in their comments or attend any of our meetings, for the last 10 minutes that we allow. Thank you so much.
That's a great suggestion. We'll do an updated flyer that just says we finished our listening sessions. Here we are with the work, how they can contact us with further input. Yep, and put that date down for December 31st. Thank you. We'll get that done and sent out to everybody. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for today again. And thank you for giving us a few extra minutes. With that, I'd like to go ahead and just adjourn our meeting and see you all next time. Have a great holiday too, everyone. Okay.
Miigwech, Pudamya, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy
Bye, everyone.
holidays.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy holidays.